Suspense. We're live. Welcome in, everybody. It's Friday, a little bit after 11 a.m. Central. I haven't started these on time lately. I apologize for everybody who's been waiting. Really sorry. Thank you for your patience, but we're here now. Thank you so much. Friday Community Forum. We'll get together. We get together every single Friday with my community. Bob, aka Borg Arm, aka Borg Hand, aka Richard, aka Not Legal Advice. We got Hans, we got Rodman, our usual panelists. And every single Friday we sit down and we talk about the world of Tesla, Elon Musk, technology, AI, all this crazy stuff that's happening in the world. This next week we have Investor Day coming up. So obviously that's going to be a huge part of our discussion. It's probably going to dominate the entire hour and a half. After the hour and a half is up, we'll take this conversation to my private Discord and members only content. We'll do a live stream just for members, and we'll continue the discussion and talk about whatever my community wants to talk about as well. So if you're interested in that, consider joining right below this video. And then half of the earnings of every single one of these panels goes to my community pool, and the community decides how to spend those earnings. It could be a charity, friggin' buying Starlink for a bunch of people in I don't know, in places that need them. Who knows what we're gonna do? But it's up to the community to decide. How's everybody doing? Bob, how you doing today?
I'm good. I'm going to can I quickly talk about what we talked about? So I brought this up probably about 2 months ago. There's a company called Mmtlp. It is basically a stock or a security that was shorted. And since December 8th, everybody that was involved in that particular security is in limbo. So there's been no settlement. Nobody has traded anything. Nobody has any value. And as a result, unfortunately, because of the stress caused by those events, there's been at least one suicide. People who have needed chemotherapy have been unable to get it, and other stories like that. It's a small company, 65,000 investors, but the issue again is illegal naked shorting. And even in Elon's trial, the last trial that happened in San Francisco, when they were discussing why the stock went down after he made the tweet, his response was short selling. And there is an enormous amount of illegal short selling. As to Mmtlp, it has personal, it's a personal thing for me, but it affects every company. So you should be aware of the illegal short selling. And to the extent you have a congressman or somebody who is interested or on a finance committee, reach out to them, because it really doesn't impact the individual retail investor. And it impacts all of us at Tesla, all the retail investors at Tesla. So anyway, that's my little spiel.
Where can people find more information about this? Is there a YouTube channel that people can go to?
Well, they can come to my YouTube channel, but if they just, which is Not Legal Advice, KNOT, but also if they just kind of Google Mmtlp, or they go on to YouTube and they do Mmtlp, there'll be a load of videos dealing with it and explaining illegal short selling. And it's a good topic for everybody to become conversant on, because it impacts everybody. And the regulators, unfortunately, do not do an adequate job supervising this particular area of the law and of business.
Yeah, thank you for saying that, Richard. I agree. And I'm glad somebody's out there that understands the space and is willing to take up the fight. So thank you, and everybody that's part of that movement. Hans, Rodman, how you guys doing, man? You guys good? Chilling? Who's going to go first?
We're good. Okay. Just excited for next week. I'll be out there. So. Looking forward to seeing you guys.
Yeah, man.
So anyone out there in Austin, head out to Clive Bar. Hans and I will be there. We'll try to get some time with Farzad. So
yeah. Dude, I'm going to throw you guys up on a panel with me. You guys up for that? You have no choice.
I'm down.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Awesome.
We'll do as long as it's not the big panel.
It won't be the big. It'll be like one of the ones before. We'll figure it out. I'm still trying to figure out the logistics. But yeah, if you are in town in Austin next week, I'll be hosting a live panel at Clive Bar off of Rainey Street in downtown Austin. We'll be live streaming it as well here, and our panelists are Dave Lee, Rob Maurer, Dan Ives, Pierre Ferragu, Sandy Monroe, and Sam. I blanking on his last name. I'm sorry, Sam, from ARK Invest. So it's going to be a very diverse, awesome group of people. It's going to be super, super exciting.
I think it's Chorus, Sam Chorus.
Yes, Sam Chorus. Thank you very much.
And by the way, I believe, and I'm not speaking out of turn here, but I think Rodman has an extra bedroom if anybody needs it.
Okay. Yeah, he does. We found that on private Discord. It was awesome. Okay, let's go ahead and pull up the tweet that Hans just shared in the private chat. Producer wife, obviously, she's really the reason why this show even exists in the first place. Does amazing work in the background for us. Thank you so much. Go ahead and pull up Hans's tweet in the private chat so we can look at it together. Investor Day. This is really the big thing that's happening in the world of Tesla. In that Elon Musk reply at the bottom there, EV1, which was for those that are, I think, familiar with the Tesla story, EV1 is like the what is that? The GM car, right? The GM EV that they manufactured back in the day and they crushed because of regulations or something crazy happened. Who Killed the Electric Car covers the story really well. I think it's on Netflix. The T0 is the original concept car where the original Roadster was based on at Tesla, I believe. If I think I'm right. If I'm wrong, correct me. I think I'm right. Hans is nodding yes. The Roadster was Tesla's first real electric car that was based on the Lotus. S3XY stands for the Model S, Model 3, Model X, Model Y, obviously. Then we had the Semi, which was just announced. We have the Cybertruck coming out here, hopefully later this year. And then we have ... So maybe we'll kick this off as a conversation starter. Is this a clue for what we're going to see at Investor Day? How do you guys interpret this tweet? Who wants to go first?
I'll go. Ahead, yeah, I mean, I think there's just been so much hinting either from Elon. I don't know if you looked at the video from Tesla about the HQ, the California R&D HQ. There's pictures there of like the drawings. Rob Maurer kind of did some stuff like taking those pictures and like putting them up and like photoshopping them so that the perspective is correct. And I'm sure other people have done it too. So yeah, we're just seeing more and more evidence of everything going back to that concept car of a hatchback Tesla. And I mean, I think he's been holding his tongue for long enough in the investor calls and stuff that it seems like that. I think there's like at least an 80-90% chance that something like that shows up. Full car.
So you think, wow, so you're like saying there's a significant chance, it's way more likely than not that he'll show the full compact car at Investor Day.
I think so. I think he's just been sitting on his, like, he's been just all the things that he said, like he's like, I could tell you about this, but like it's going to be it's going to be breaking the story too soon, right?
So you're on the hype train.
Yeah, he's been biting his tongue, and you know he wants to talk about it, but like he's kind of reined it in, kept his cards close to his chest, which is very un-Elon. I think it's just not in his nature to do that. He just wants to share like what he has, but like he knows that it's best not to. So I think it's been really hard for him, but I think he's been letting out little things like this, and yeah, I don't see how it doesn't come out. But I mean, there's a chance that it doesn't show up. So
okay, Hans.
Yeah, I think that at the very least, this is kind of the community consensus that we're going to get a preview of a lot of the subcomponents of the platform. But I'm actually kind of on the same wavelength with Rodman. I've been thinking about this today, just going through everyone's expectations over the past week, and then thinking, like, reading the direct source material, thinking about Elon. And I just remember, like, the Model 3 was announced a long time before it came out, and there was no worry about it cannibalizing Model S. And we're really talking about a form factor that is differentiated significantly from S3, X, and Y. And so I definitely think there's a significant chance, I don't know, I would say probably 65-35 in favor that we actually see at least one full vehicle Now, obviously, it's going to be a platform, and there will be multiple variations. But we see one specific vehicle, and it may be, would put my money on a robotaxi form factor personally, that would not necessarily, like, then we'll have to infer, okay, what does that look like for one that you can buy and purchase as a normal consumer vehicle? But that's kind of where I'm at with Gen 3 for Wednesday.
Bob, where are you at?
Yeah, so in that tweet there was 3 dots after Cybertruck, so that suggests there's something after Cybertruck.
Nice.
And that was my lawyer mind there. And but not all those products exist. So, right, because Roadster's not sold and Cybertruck's not sold really as of this point in time. So it could just mean a product conceptually. But I would expect them to announce a product in the compact class, but not to be made for at least 2 years. So they could figure out over the next year how to remarket and brand the 3 so that when they bring out the compact, they can have both of them selling and not cannibalizing each other. And there's got to be enough of a differentiation in price between the two to make sense. So if the 3's 30, then the 2Q might be 20, just throwing it out. I think they will show the platform, though. I think they'll show the new platform. I think they'll discuss the new vehicle, but I don't think they will show it because they'll be concerned that even if they say it's 2 years out, that will change people's minds and they'll pull back on buying 3s.
Okay. What if, go ahead, Raman, actually, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to contextualize this and then send it back to you. So let's think back into master plan part 3. And I think there's almost a 99% chance. I mean, I think it's almost 100% chance that he talks about that. I mean, that's the whole point of this thing. And he said it. So if we don't get master plan part 3, I think the whole thing is up in smoke. But or we just don't know what's going to happen. But let's assume we get master plan part 3, and then that talks about getting us to 20 million vehicles or something like that, right? So we need some kind of context for how to get from here to that step. So yeah, you need some kind of car just to get from where we are now to that next step. So that's what I'm thinking.
Okay. So meaning that if you're gonna unveil, hey, this is what we're working on the production side, and you're trying to move the advent of sustainable transport, great. So how are you going to sell those things? What are you going to put those batteries in, right? I think that makes a lot of sense. The point that Bob brought up, I'm literally going to call you Bob from now on, because the Richard is nowhere in your handle, so I'm just going to call you Bob. Okay. I do believe it seems like the Highland project for the Model 3, depending on when that launches, I believe that's going to create really good differentiation between the 3 and the Y and this compact car by probably lowering the cost to produce the Model 3 by a couple grand, maybe a little bit more, and then fine-tuning that platform. I believe that's, say, more performance oriented and more handling and just a little bit more I don't know, enthusiast driven versus a Model Y, which is much more utility, family, space, like a typical SUV sort of thing, at least in the States, the way we think about it. And the Highland's going to allow Tesla to achieve that. And so for this new compact car to truly have differentiation, in the same way the Model 3 didn't really cannibalize S too badly, it did some, but not too much. What was that there was a clear at the very beginning, there wasn't really, Tesla had to iterate on the S to make it people want to go up the ladder and purchase the S, because the 3 was just such a game-changing vehicle when it came out. But the 2 has to, or the 2 or the Q, whatever, has to be so different from the 3 in the standpoint of utility, performance, form factor, that if they were to announce it, say, next week, and they don't launch it for 2 years, that's the only way they can do that without hurting the Model 3 or the Model Y. It has to be completely and utterly different. Otherwise, there's literally no point to buy a Model 3, in my opinion. You know, the Model 3 is a great car, but if folks are buying the Model 3, like in my head, why would my dad buy a Model 3? A diehard Volkswagen Jetta TDI diesel loving person, used cars only. You know, I think he had a Honda Accord. I forget what he had. He drove into it, had 380,000 miles or something. And he's like, this is the best car I ever had. My mom is like, why are you driving this freaking death trap all the time? Right. So that's the kind of mentality my dad has. But he decided to buy a Model 3 because it would save him a lot of money on his freaking 2.5-hour commute he has every single day to work. So that's the thought process. But if the compact car achieves that and he gets all the bells and whistles he's looking for as a purchaser, which is lower costs, comfortable chair, comfortable seat, and just get me there safely. Okay. So what's the purpose of the Model 3? So if we get the Highland at Investor Day, I believe we'll get the compact car. If we don't get Highland at Investor Day, I don't think we get the compact car. That's the way I think about it. Am I wrong in thinking about it that way?
Well, there are people talking about, I think it was Kilowatts I forget who it was on Twitter, but they were saying that there's a source that within Tesla that's saying, basically, if you think of Highland, Project Highland as the Model 3 with hardware 4 and the new cameras, if there are new cameras, that would be coming out first for Cybertruck and then later for the S and X and then later for 3 and Y, but all by the end of the year. So if that's correct, then we know at least that part of Project Highland is in place, but we just don't know about like castings or like other updates.
Okay.
But to go back to your point between the 3 and the whatever's next, the Gen 3 platform, I think it's really about like the size of the car, right? So if you're thinking of a compact versus a full sedan, you just get a lot more storage. You get a lot more, like the Model 3 just has so much space in that trunk. Like even it's less compared to the Y, of course, but like it's pretty deep, right? Because there's just a lot, you can fit a lot of luggage back there. I just don't think you'll be able to get that much behind there for like whatever that next gen car is.
Okay. Who wants to go next?
Sure. Yeah. So I was thinking as you were talking, I kind of think of it as the difference between the Corolla and the Camry. I think there's got to be that big a distinction, 2 different cars. And I think that's how I was thinking. And I was also thinking somewhat maybe between the 3 Series and the 5 Series and the BMW, maybe. But I think also part of Project Highland is kind of fancying up the interior. It's kind of a redo of the interior. So that would go along with that refresh to set it apart from the new compact, I think.
I agree with that. Yeah, it's like it's an actual refresh. In the same way the SNDX had the plaid, sort of this plaid refresh where the interior was different and they made the curves and the lines sharper, more modern. Like the 3 would get something. I would 100% agree with that. Hans, where's your head at with this discussion?
Yeah, I pretty much would echo all the points that were made. I think I agree with all of that.
So you're thinking 65% compact car gets shown at this event. What if, the one tweet that Elon had around how and see producer wife, if you can find this on Elon's feed, it was around Investor Day being about not just your typical investor, but people that want to invest in Earth, right? Like people that really want to invest in the future of mankind. The Limiting Factor did a video earlier this morning, which was phenomenal. If you guys don't follow The Limiting Factor, Jordan Gisigi, go check out his video. He previews Master Plan Part 3. And a lot of it was sort of focused around this, it's like it's all about scale. It truly is all about scale. But then there was a nugget about how can we get other people to invest in this future with Tesla or be part of that future with Tesla to better humanity from this standpoint of technology. And I wonder if this sort of Gen 3 platform is sort of like how Jordan talked about the factory is going to be part of like selling the factory, making it into a product and having other people buying gigafactors, and that's how they're going to invest in the future. I wonder how much of the Gen 3 platform is, okay, so we're Tesla. We're going to just dump a bunch of incredibly price to like very great batteries and great drivetrains to the market. We're going to manufacture some cars with those, but we're just going to flood the market with batteries and drivetrains. And then if you're an automaker, you are free to purchase these from us and just plop a body on it and drive it off the lot. And that's how you can be part of this future. You invest in the Tesla technology. You invest in what it means to have a Gen 3 platform. You'll get access to the supercharging network without having to even think about it. You'll get the best dollar per kilowatt hour performance on the battery. You'll get our state-of-the-art drivetrain, which is the most efficient on the market. And you'll tap into our supply chain because we have the largest and most comprehensive supply chain with the best costs. Do you think that's part of this? Like, how do you guys think about that within the context of Master Plan Part 3, that it's much less about Tesla building the compact car and more about Tesla actually becoming that, what some theorized be the supplier of batteries and drivetrains for the entire auto market, which will allow to, they will specialize in that and let other people do the manufacturing of the vehicles. Is that too far-fetched? How do you guys think about that?
I mean, what you're discussing is basically them becoming a tier 1 supplier. And there is some potential there. Obviously, they would have to have enough battery. Like if you're talking about making batteries part of what's available, they would have to have enough supply to more than meet their own demand, which I feel like is unlikely. Powertrain elements are a different story. I think one of the biggest things that they could do to actually help the auto industry, that as far as I know they haven't done yet, is to release their patent on the alloy that they use to do the gigacastings on, because that alloy is a very specific alloy that makes that whole process possible. It's really kind of black magic. Like I know I've said this before on the channel, but a lot of innovations are dependent on material science, and that's a big one there. And so if they allow other manufacturers to use those, and someone like Idra or some competitors to Idra can come up that can supply casting machines, and then have the ability to use that alloy, that would be a major tailwind to the auto industry if people will adopt it. And the other thing that I think about is just how vertically integrated Tesla is from an engineering design standpoint. They don't have, we've seen this on all the Sandy Munro teardowns, that there's not, okay, y'all are in charge of cooling, y'all are in charge of drivetrain, and then you get in and you tear the car apart and you can see like the organizational units that, well, they just bought parts off of a tier 1 catalog and figured out how to put them all together, and then they got this much space. That way of doing business in the auto industry is not going to be competitive moving forward. And so I don't know, like the most valuable part of what Tesla's doing in their vehicles is almost the vertically integrated engineering design behind the vehicles. But their engineering resources are very precious to them. So it's like they could, on one hand, it would be a huge help if they could teach other automakers how to design that way. But on the other hand, they're never going to waste their engineers on teaching other people how to do that. So I don't know. It's definitely a tough situation if you're trying to be competitive in the automotive industry over the next 10, 20 years.
Yeah. Thoughts?
I'll go. Yeah. So this is all about mass numbers, right? So mass, I mean, to me, a way of accomplishing that would be to sell the technology, license the technology, and make a royalty on each vehicle. But it would give you I think it would give you something else on top of that, besides expanding, basically converting the market. So ICE ceases to exist. If in essence you're helping the marketplace grow to your disadvantage theoretically in terms of market share, which you would, it probably would let you get regulatory approval for FSD. There would be some trade-off in there. You're going to give up market share, and in return, you're going to get the favor of having the regulators let you get FSD approved. So I think there's a way that you might be able to get margins out of that and still be more profitable. But I think it's more that you're selling the technology than the product, the way I looked at it. But on top of that, I think, and this is kind of getting back to Investor Day, I think the power side is going to be the non-car side is going to be really what's going to be pushed, because ultimately the lack of power in the world is the #1 problem currently. And if Tesla somehow has a plan for mass producing megapacks, solar tiles, all those things, I think that really goes forward in terms of accomplishing the goal of mass production of those kind of items and of the shift in energy. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Investor Day focuses a lot on the mass production of non-car energy related products.
Interesting. Yeah, if we read Elon's tweet from February 13th, sort of alluding to what's going to be at Investor Day. Looking forward to Tesla Investor Day on March 1st. By this, we mean the broadest definition of investor, as in the people and life of Earth. It will be a message of good hope and positivity for the future. I think getting to the point where you have a lot of energy storage and solar panels and all these things to be part of that master plan, I think. So how does that align with good hope and positivity for the future? It means that every single person, theoretically, if it's cheap enough, would be able to generate their own energy, especially, which is absolutely game-changing, not in obviously the developed world, but in developing nations as well. Because then they're sort of, that's what I'm alluding to to my reply to his tweet. How I'm asking him if he would be, touching on how Tesla could start becoming a big player in developing nations, because you could utilize this growth in energy to help a lot of these nations completely bypass the electric grid and just self-generate electricity. And then Hans replied to that as well, sort of alluding to Starlink. Don't forget Starlink for rural telco backbone. Yeah,
it's not just a problem in the the third world. It's a problem in our world. I mean, how many 100%. Times have we heard like the grid goes down? And
Texas, it's 2023 and we lose power here.
California, I mean, it's ridiculous theoretically in a first world country that the grid doesn't support, and obviously we'd be benefited as much as anybody else.
Yeah, Hans or Rodman, any thoughts there? No. Okay. Yeah, man, I really hope they show that compact car now. I was really, this is what always happens to me. I'm always, weeks out, I'm like, temper the expectations. They're not going to show anything, blah, blah, blah. And then freaking Elon starts tweeting about certain clues. And I'm like, and I, in my head, I don't even know if they're actually clues, but I'm like, yeah, it's a clue. And then you have Rob Maurer doing the work of piecing all these things together. Then you got Elon with the ... I'm like, they just know how to freaking build hype around these things. But I think ultimately, so my question would be, what would make you happy, right? So we'll go around the panel and ask sort of the question, what would make you happy if, as a Tesla investor, if you saw this or these things at the meeting? And for me, what would make me really happy is an understanding of where Cybertruck's production is. Like, part of me hopes that we get the stats for the Cybertruck, and maybe if production is ready for July, like say the first deliveries, in my heart of hearts says it's on July 4th, 2023, on Independence Day, you unveil the Cybertruck, the most American-made car ever. It's a pickup truck right in the heart of Texas. Come on, guys! Like, this is incredible if you're able to do that. So that's first. Second is some sort of platform at all that helps us understand how to think about the volumes for the next few years for the Gen 3 platform, so that we can start to model, okay, how likely is the 20 million cars per year by 2030? What are your biggest limiting factors, shout out Jordan Gisigi, in getting there? What are the things that are really going to be difficult to tackle? If it's lithium, are you working on alleviating that lithium shortage or any sort of anode shortage? Is a 20 million car per year in 2023 a 10% likelihood, a 50% likelihood? Like, help us understand that a little bit better. And then third, Tesla Energy, like to Bob's point, if we can get some concrete understanding on what this ramp is going to look like and what costs are associated with that ramp and what their expected margins are going to be, if it's going to be more profitable than the car. They'll definitely sandbag this for sure. If I was them, I wouldn't give any of this information away, to be completely honest, but it would make me really happy to hear it. So those are the things that I'm looking for. But of course, if freaking the Tesla bot comes out and walking around, I'm going to be like, oh my God, I'm going to be running around like a schoolgirl, like screaming, oh my God, they figured it out, So let's go around the horn. Let's do Bob, Hans, Rodman. Bob, you go first.
All right. So for me, I'd want to hear them discuss the platform. I actually want to see the platform, the new platform. I want them to discuss the compact. I want them to show drawings of the compact. And then I want to see them roll out the prototype, kind of surprisingly, and then say that this is at least 2 years out, but kind of here we are, and this is what we're going to do. I want them to discuss their plan for the mass production of megapacks, et cetera, worldwide. And that's sufficient for me. Now, one thing about this is kind of like a side issue, but it related to the prototype. I saw somewhere somebody was talking about, I think everybody saw the picture of that Cybertruck prototype in Palo Alto that couldn't get up on the curb, so they kind of had to push it up on the curb. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah,
it was a video. So
were they pushing it?
Yeah, they were pushing it because they were concerned about maybe it bottoming them out or something.
Okay.
And apparently that prototype, somebody said that one prototype cost like $20 million. That particular all-in.
That makes sense.
All-in. So, but the person commented that because of the state of the prototype, they suspected that the delivery date was not in 2023. So I thought that was an interesting comment because we all are expecting it sometime in 2023. Elon kind of was a little reserved about numbers, so he suggested mass volumes not to 2024. But it was an interesting comment based upon somebody looking at that prototype and making a conclusion. I had no idea other than that it was interesting that it cost $20 million.
Okay. Hans?
Yeah, there's a number of things that I'm going to be watching for. I don't necessarily expect all of these things. And I think it's maybe important to note that my sense from Elon is that his intended audience really is a much more general audience. It's not really for us Tesla nerds as much, although there will be plenty of stuff for us to dig into and dissect and pontificate about. But yeah, I don't think we're really the primary intended audience. That said, things that I'm looking for, I really want to know what the plan is for lithium supply, as much detail as they'll give us. That's number one. I really want to know more about 4680 ramp progress and guidance on that. I would, love Cybertruck delivery date and then also guidance on their expectation for 2023, 2024. I want to see Tesla Energy. I'd love to see guidance on deliveries and guidance on margins. I'm very curious to see what their tone is in discussing FSD and robotaxis. I think this is going to be a big one because as we're thinking about scaling to sustainable energy future, obviously the ability to count on robotaxis to have a much higher utilization is a big component in that. So the more robotaxis that we have driving more miles, the less units that we need, the less battery materials we need to mine. And so I'm very curious to see what they come up with on that front. Going back to battery day, their expectations for battery supply going out to 2030 basically assumed no robotaxi contribution. Like it was just number of cars sold in 2018 or 2019. Say, Tesla gets 20% of that, and then the rest of the auto industry is able to supply the other 80%. So that's, assuming a normal number of units of vehicles sold So they may not say anything regarding their anticipation of robotaxi being able to reduce that, just based on historical comments. And then, yeah, I'm very curious to see anything on Tesla bot. But yeah, I think those are the things that are all the most critical components of the Tesla story and that have the longest term impact.
Okay. Rodman?
Well, I've had the most time to think through the whole thing, so I have to give you a good answer. It better be good. So if I'm Tesla, I think it starts like the best way to like present all this information is start with the big long-term picture and then work your way towards the present. And then that's the more exciting stuff that people are really looking forward to, like, you know, like maybe like we've got new cars coming in. So they'll probably say that stuff towards the end, and then that'll be the big wow factor. So in the long term, I'm definitely looking for that path to 20 million vehicles. You know, that's a lot of has to do with the battery supply, getting the whole supply chain, like Hans talked about. Um, I really want to see, you know, what the new factories are. Like, is Mexico coming? Is Canada coming? Is Indonesia coming? What else they're doing in Austin? There's a lot of work going on at Austin. I think there's some. I haven't been following Berlin as much, but there's just so much land left. I want to see what they do with all that stuff and what their plans are. If they can tell us more about that, and even explain what the current things they're doing are, and just give us like confirmation. I want to see. Yeah, I just want to really understand like what it is that's going to get us from where we are today to like 3 million vehicles to 5 million vehicles, and then 10, and then 20. And you know, the more they can paint like that picture of how we get from here to there, you know, it doesn't have to be with perfect clarity. I mean, there's no way it can be with perfect clarity, but like just seeing that would be great. And then, yeah, towards the more near term, like what it is with what's going on with Cybertruck, what's going on with Highland, what's going on with the next gen platform, robotaxi, what they see kind of as the next steps from FSD to getting to robotaxis. That's kind of more of a AI day kind of thing, but sometimes they do cover some of this stuff, you know, even if it's not in full. And this is all, I think I kind of a little bit disagree with Hans that it's for a different audience. I think it is mostly just, it's an investor day. So I think, you know, them geeking out a little bit on like margins and like how they're going to make everything profitable and how they're going to continue like the operating leverage and things like that. Continuing to tell that story, at least, I think that's kind of also stuff that I would be looking for. But yeah, the most exciting thing I think would be something to do, like, you know, just having like a more updated version of Optimus, or just maybe some updates about that would be like really amazing. So that would really get me excited.
Okay.
And then there's one more thing, is that he said that he was going to bring in other stuff from Master Plan Part 3 is supposed to bring in stuff from SpaceX, and Boring Company and all the other companies. So if he talks about Twitter as well, like how that integrates or some of the plans, that might be really interesting. But yeah, SpaceX has a lot of stuff coming up. So yeah, this little thing right here.
Nice. Can I give you my speculation on those two, and then we can go around and sort of get ideas? Yeah, and Jordan highlighted this on his video today as well on the limiting factor. I mean, the Boring Company one has to be mining, right? It has to be. Hans says no. Bob says yes. Raman's like, it has to be, in my opinion. I just don't know what other use case there would be, but I would love to hear. Or okay, it would have to be mining, or I just think it's mining. Anyway, I'm just going to stick to that, and we'll turn to discussion. We got Solar Tile 4.0 from Grace as well. They're thinking about what chat is looking for. Let us know what you're looking for as well, by the way. You know, don't let us just have monopolize the discussion. And I know that in the chat we always have amazing conversations. So if you know, definitely throw out around some ideas on what you like, what you would love to see from Tesla. And then the SpaceX one, I wonder how much of it is just transporting raw materials from one place to another as quickly as humanly possible. It might be very expensive, but I'm curious to see if we get some unit economics from Tesla on how to do that. Tesla buys Twitter from Elon. Yeah. You want to, oh my, you think Ross Gerber is mad now? If no new model, the stock will tank. I don't know about that. I'm not so sold on that. I'm curious to hear y'all's opinion on that. We got Elon's Musk burnt hair 2.0. That's what they should have totally named that cologne for sure from Hadouken. A Boring Company would be about getting people to drive underground and with EVs to give land back rather than have massive highways above the ground. Yep, that's one very reasonable one that makes a lot more sense than mine for sure. Mark, new lithium refining tech patents. Nice. I think Hans lightly alluded to this when he was talking about raw materials. Twitzla, please no. What do we have any other ones? Let's see. Yeah, we already saw that one from Mark. Okay. Any thoughts? Any rebuttals around? I'd love to see any progress on Tesla bot. Yeah, if it's walking around, I think that would be so sick. If it's like serving drinks, right? LFP factory, ASAP, maybe Mexico. Yeah, that's another good one.
I was going to say, that was an interesting because we did it. We announced last week at sometime during a community forum, the Mexican factory. Yeah. And so as of now, it's not been confirmed, correct? Even though everybody thinks it is. But that's correct. Interesting kind of as a example of how we get news and we think it's confirmed. And a week later, it's still kind of open. So it makes you want to be skeptical and cautious when you get information to make sure it's accurate, because it may be accurate, it just hasn't been immediate, I would say. Anyway, that struck me as interesting.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I still feel like the Mexico announcement isn't. I mean, there's so much smoke around that story. It's if it doesn't get announced at Investor Day, I'm going to be shocked, to be completely honest. If Mexico doesn't get announced, I might be wrong, but Hans, I was seeing you shake your head around Boring Company for mining.
Yeah, I think the primary use for Boring Company is just to, taking the travel network from 2D to 3D. The initial goal of Boring Company is definitely going to be a portion of Master Plan Part 3 in how to get to an overall sustainable energy future, especially if you marry that with Hyperloop concepts. If you can evacuate air from that tunnel, then you can drive a lot faster. If you can travel at faster rates of speed directly from point to point, you might actually be able to, you marry that with robo-taxis and you might actually be able to reduce the total number of vehicles necessary on roads. So, or in tunnels.
Fair enough. Bob, Rodman, any thoughts?
I just don't have enough understanding of how mining is done, but that having a boring drill does not seem to me to be the way to get at materials. But I don't know. I mean, that's not my wheelhouse. So
I would say consistent with what everything else they've done is if they can't get it from somebody else or they can't get it efficiently from somebody else, they'll do it themselves. Whether they like it or not, they just will do it.
Yeah.
That's also a good point, is that even if Boring Company is not whatever they built currently, the boring vehicles, the boring machines, if they may not be immediately applicable to some other mining, but maybe that gives them some of that technology carries over in some way. I'm not sure.
And I believe it would be much better if the Boring Company built more exciting equipment.
Come on, Boring Company, get your marketing right. Jeez. We have a poll that we've been running. Producer wife, let's go ahead and end that poll and post it here shortly. Any other thoughts around Investor Day that we want to hit? What else do we want to talk about?
I will just take the other side of my argument for a second on the Boring Company and say, if Tesla really does have something around direct lithium extraction from clays, I could see, because Elon said that it'd be the kind of thing where you take the dirt out, you put salt in it, you mix it up with water, and then you put the dirt right back where it went. I could see boring tunnel equipment being part of the, of that process. basically busting up the clay, putting it, because they've got to get it out of their way as they make the tunnel, and then but potentially even be able to fill back in behind them. So yeah, there's definitely a potential use for the Boring Company in mining in my mind. I just don't see it as primary.
Okay, that's fair.
I was going to say also, I think there's one other thing they're going to talk about. At least I hope they talk about it. I know you Texans don't like to hear this, but moving it's the second part of it that I think nobody's talked about. Moving the engineering headquarters back to Palo Alto, besides the fact I like it because it's California, I think it's a brilliant political move, strategic move. I think it keeps everybody leveraged, every state leveraged. I think it's great. I mean, really, I think it's really a thoughtful, good strategy. I guess they picked up 325,000 square feet of space. It was HP's former world headquarters. But the part that I haven't heard anybody else mention was it's also going to be their AI headquarters. And so, and partly because of that, there's a lot of university power right there. But that's going to be a big deal. And I wouldn't be surprised during Investor Day that when he talks about AI and Tesla bot, that he also refers to the new headquarters and the new programs they might be running out of there.
Got it. That's actually a great point. I do think I actually had a tweet. We were talking about. I was baiting Elon into political tweets. I swear to God, I wasn't trying to. He just happened to reply. He replies to my tweets sometimes. I don't know. We're friends. Can't know what to tell you. We're not. But so producer wife, go ahead and pull up that tweet when you get a chance. I think the recent happenings. So since the Twitter acquisition, there was a lot of like let's just say noise. That's probably the mildest way to put it around some of the rhetoric that Elon had. But it was sort of catering to one. It seemed like it was being catering to, or it just the perception was that it was towards one side of the aisle. And now with the sort of the Biden administration coming out in support of the supercharging network, you have some very clear friendship or some sort of working together with Gavin Newsom, who's one of the leaders of that other side of the political party. Elon is playing, I say playing both sides, but I don't really mean it in a malicious way. I mean it like he's working with both sides, and it's very fascinating seeing that happen. And I wonder, to your point, Bob, how much of this is going to be just such a strength coming into towards the end of the decade, when you really you're working with everybody where you're going to have mutual benefits, right? Because you think about Elon's enterprises, they are very fascinating in the standpoint that they're obviously great job builders. They are great. They have a great message around the future of technology. And then with him having Twitter, it's also like you have this additional layer of what a lot of people on a certain part of the political aisle really, really like are always like, oh my God, oh my God. So here's my tweet. Might be too early in saying this, but it really does seem like Elon Musk is playing both sides of the political aisle really well as of late. Right-wing rhetoric with freedom of speech and Twitter, left-wing with Supercharger Network for AVs and Cali HQ. Interesting. That was just some commentary. And then Elon replied, crazy theory. Maybe I'm just a centrist. Also, when did free speech become right-wing? That was the weirdest switcheroo ever. And then my reply to him, which it was just very sarcastic, but a lot of people took it very literally. Impossible. There's only two sides of the political spectrum. 50% of America doesn't exist. Okay. But that was sort of my commentary around, hey, like, you're right. There's some centrist stuff in here. And it's great to see somebody in his position to really come out and have that sort of partnership with both sides. I just find it to be really, it seems like he's very well aware of how much change he can create by having those partnerships. And obviously a very savvy businessman would do that. So how do you guys think about that? This whole thing sort of going through and what Bob talked about. Any thoughts?
I think to reference your nice little background there, that it touches on Tim's recent book, What's Our Problem? And I think Elon is much more of a high rung political thinker than necessarily a centrist. I love the way that Tim added the high rung versus low rung thinking axis to the political spectrum. And so, yeah, I think really almost anyone who is a high rung thinker, who is able to like basically cherry pick. Like, I think that the right is correct on issue A, B, and C. I think the left is correct on issue X, Y, Z. Like, we call that person a centrist today, but it just means that they don't buy into the full rhetoric of red versus blue, that they allow for there to be some nuance. And so I see that much more as being what Elon is than necessarily a centrist. And I love that. I love that he's promoting that on Twitter. And I think that Twitter is, in his mind, supposed to be the place where that type of high rung thinking is at least possible. It's not that there won't be low rung thinking on Twitter, because there's going to be tons of it, but that doesn't mean that the low rung thinking is allowed to crowd out all of the high rung thinking. And so, I'm excited to see that future. And I have been wondering how much influence Elon has had on Tim's thoughts on the subject, and vice versa. I wonder, if they have been in continued conversation since Tim wrote the Elon Musk series back in 2016. Because, this book he started writing basically on the heels. There was not very much in between the end of his Elon Musk posts and the beginning of this book.
That's a great point. Bob, go ahead, and then Rodman.
Yeah, I think it's great, because kind of what we talk about in this forum is civility, and he's basically...
You shut your mouth right now.
Exactly. But he's also basically demonstrating, well, how should Congress act? You don't have to agree, you don't have to like each other, but get something done. Let's work together. And I think it's a great lesson, especially for a guy who's theoretically so divisive. The guy who's theoretically so divisive is showing guys in Washington how to do it. So I think it's really profound and really interesting, the kind of juxtaposition of them. And one further comment, this has nothing to do with anything, but when you guys were talking about battery day, just so you know, in baseball, that's when the pitchers and catchers report.
I don't get it.
It's a true statement.
I don't get it.
In baseball spring training, the pitchers and catchers come before anybody else, because it takes them longer to get ready, and that's the battery. Pitcher and catcher is called the battery.
Oh, okay. I don't like baseball. Sorry, Rodman.
I couldn't tell.
I was like, I saw the baseball coming, and then I know Farzad only watches football, so like, just to talk a little bit more about what we're talking about with the I have it on my phone, this book, but the high rung versus low rung. If people don't really know what we're talking about,
I don't know if that's gonna help.
This ladder. I don't know if you can see it, but like, this is the best picture I could come up with. But basically, all it's talking about is, like, on high rung, you're really divorcing yourself from your ideas, and that's what we really have been pushing for in our Discord, is that we're talking about things divorced from our own selves. We respect each other, but our ideas are out there, and anyone's free to battle them. And we try to like not take our ideas personally when they're attacked, right? And then the low rung is when you're very fervent or zealot about your ideas, or you arrive at your idea first before like thinking it through. And like, the opposite of that is like a very scientific method where you come up with hypotheses, and you're coming up with a lot of different ideas, and then you're trying to even tear down your own hypothesis. And we like getting that kind of respect is actually pretty hard to do, but when you build a culture around it, it becomes much easier. And I guess that's the thing that we've seen a lot. We've even had people come through, and like, it was more like people are very tied to their ideas, and it becomes very hard to I mean, we're all guilty of it. Like, you get very attached to your ideas, and you just won't back down when someone is trying to disprove your point, or you start attacking them personally, right? Yeah, I think Elon, going back to Elon, he strikes me very much like from every interview I've read of him, I've watched of him, and just like hearing him talk, he seems like if someone says that he's a very hands down leader, it just doesn't make much sense to me, because it seems like he's always trying to elicit ideas and figure out what works best and then eject anything that doesn't work very quickly, right? So it seems like the people who don't get along with him are the people who are very personally attached to their ideas, and if their idea gets rejected, then they feel rejected. But it shouldn't be that way, right? It should be you as a person are respected for your ideas, but your ideas themselves are, there's no limits, right? Like we can attack your ideas and without attacking you, right? So I feel like that's Elon. I mean, at the highest level, right?
I think what's interesting about what you just said is like a lot of this thing that's sort of, we're getting some early signs of this type of, I don't know, a lot more visible at a much larger scale through Twitter, of exactly what you just described, which is like, let's see how we can build a place or a way for ideas to come forward as quickly as possible with zero ego attached to it, so that we can analyze them and then throw out the bad ones, keep the good ones, and keep iterating, right? And that is like exactly how Elon Musk's companies work internally. And I can say this very accurately by working there. So it's like, I can see so much, the parallels exist so much between what's the attempt that's what he's trying to do with Twitter, with some of these, removing these variables. But the problem is that when we've lived in a place where a lot of this, I don't know, when there's been, it's such human nature to be married to an idea. I'm guilty of this all the time. It's so hard not to take it personal, because you've invested so much time in building up that idea, that when somebody says, nope, that thing is wrong, you're like, wow, but I invested all this time into it. And what the hell? It like took a lot of effort. And you're here telling me I'm basically a dumbass for it. And that's the ego coming through, and the emotion coming through, and identifying yourself with that idea. And that is so freaking hard to break out of. It's like almost impossible. But we'll see. We'll see if it's effective. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. It also may be the case. Okay. Bob, sorry. It also may be the case that people aren't like solidly behind an idea, and when somebody questions them, they actually get crushed, and it's a depressing event. So it's hard if you're not really. It's like a stock too. I mean, I treat it like a stock. If I buy a stock and I'm buying because Hans told me to buy it, and it drops 20%, I'm south. But if I buy Tesla and I know it's gone, I don't care. It's not going to shake me. But I think a lot of people don't have that definitive base to support a lot of their views, and they're relying upon what other people say, and they can be easily hurt, unfortunately.
I think most people do, but we don't hear from them. That's the thing. We only hear from the ones that don't. I think a majority of them do, but it's just they're not part of the public discourse nearly as much as they should be, in my opinion. Yeah. Go ahead, Hans.
I'm evaluating your statement. I think that there are things that a lot of people know about deeply, but I would say that, on Twitter, what you see is people who have an opinion on everything. And there's no way that you can have an opinion on everything that you've gone that deep on. And so that means that you must have adopted the majority of those opinions from someone else. It reminds me, going back to Daniel Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow, that there's system 1 and system 2, and system 1 takes up a lot more energy. And like, that's what you're putting to work when you're really trying to develop a deep understanding of a topic. And then system 2 is just like the shortcut. Someone else that I trust, for whatever reason, developed X opinion, they must be right. Here we go. Like, a lot of the opinions that you see touted so often on social media are the system 2 opinions. So that's always fun, because those are the people that it's hardest to convince otherwise, for a variety of reasons. I would say the other thing about going back to the event with Tesla and Elon Musk announcing that they're moving the engineering headquarters to the old HP address, that I was pretty impressed by Gavin in that little short snippet. And it seemed like he genuinely has has personally supported Tesla and their mission, and that he's excited about the continued growth of Tesla in California. And so, that was cool to see. I think there's a lot of forces within the party that make it hard for him to express his genuine opinions. So it was cool that this kind of gave him the opportunity to do that a little bit more, that, there needed to be some sort of an event where they could glad hand, and Tesla was doing something that he could recognize was contributing to the economy of California, so that he could share those opinions. But it did seem like those were genuine opinions that he's held for a significant portion of time. So,
yeah, no, that's a great point.
He's also not universally loved in California, just so you know. There's a lot of people who don't think he's far left enough, and there's a lot of people who place a lot of the state's woes on him. But I mean, it's a big state. There's a lot of problems.
I definitely don't envy his job.
Yeah, it's not easy, but imagine the impact if it would have been GM. Again, we just kind of throw it out, but it's a big deal, and it kind of got lost. I mean, it was covered, but if it was GM or Ford, their stock probably would have been up 5%.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a really good point. Hans?
I think one of the challenges in California would be reflective of challenges that like an extremely, extremely red state would have. That when you've got single party control for such a long time, that you really have to just placate these special interests that are probably a little bit too far in an extreme direction or a power direction, like the teachers unions in California, or various other special interest groups. And like there needs to be some tension between left and right that keeps those types of dynamics in check, which once again goes right back to the book, that you need more of the high rung genie thinking, that let's really come together and respect each other as people and have the ideas that we're all having, duke it out and go with whatever ideas are best. Like right now, half of the ideas that it will take to make California an extremely great running state are off the table, not even part of the conversation. And so that makes it difficult to really have a state that runs as optimally as it could. I mean, there's a lot of great things about California. And, I think there's a place also for states that are a lot more lopsided red versus blue in the union overall too. So, it's kind of interesting how all of the country works as these different pockets. But yeah, I think that's one of the challenges definitely of being the governor of California, is just dealing with all those dynamics.
Yeah. I would just push back a little bit. That's like putting it's a very blue state, but like even
can I say something before we do that? Let's reserve that for the private Discord. Just because the title says Tesla's Investor Day preview. I love this.
Yeah, let's do it.
We should continue this discussion, but let's reserve it for that. I love it, and we should. Yeah, I really wanted to continue the discussion, but let's do it later. Go ahead, Bob.
Yeah, I was going to say, as far as I'm along in lines with this discussion, I think your ideas stink.
Thank you. Yeah. I hate your idea, but I love you.
By the way, there's one thing I didn't know. You could invest in SpaceX still.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at minimum of $25,000 investment.
Okay.
Pre-IPO. Yeah. They just reduced it from 100,000.
Okay. Nice. Steal. That's a steal. Not financial advice. Let's go ahead and show the poll, and let's queue up some Q&A as well, so we can do some Q&A here for the last 15-20 minutes of the stream. So the poll question was, will the Tesla compact car be unveiled at Tesla's Investor Day? 52% say yes, 47% say no. So it's actually quite split, and that's actually I'm actually a little bit surprised by that result. How do you guys think about that? There's a lot of splitness here.
Well, I guess the interpretation is if they say there's going to compact car and they show drawings, is that unveiling it, or do they have to actually show
physical?
Physical car. I would say at least they'll show drawings and talk about it. I don't know if they'll actually unveil the prototype.
I think if they show drawings, they show the real thing. I think it's either all or nothing as far as the car goes. The platform, I think, will be shown regardless. But if they're going to show the car what it looks like, they're going to bring it out. Hans or Rodman, any thoughts around the poll results?
Half of
Don't want to keep talking about politics. I love it.
Okay. I do think it's I'm surprised that so many people think that the car will be unveiled, which maybe makes me think it won't.
Yeah. Y'all are right and wrong at the same time. What last topic do we want to hit before we hit Q&A? I have a couple, but I want to defer to you guys.
So I'm going to, of course, jump in. Of course. I saw something about BYD. The numbers were fabricated. Do you see that? That they 200,000 units. There was 200,000 units apparently that they sold to dealers at a discount, and they counted those as sold to customers. And it was 200,000, so it wasn't like an insignificant number of units. And I guess they were interviewing a dealer who had purchased a bunch of those units. I thought that was interesting because I haven't heard anything about it after that. And it certainly sounds like manipulation of their numbers.
Dealer stuffing.
Yeah. My problem with that is that I have a hard time not believing anything, even the rumors that's coming out of that, unfortunately, because it's been so unreliable. The thing that really, I think if that really is a problem, we'll see that effect at some point, right? Because if there's really that low of a demand, they'll see a short-term increase in their sales. But at some point, even those dealer lots are going to get full unless they just keep building dealer lots until they run out of room. So there'll just be a lag in the sort of lessening of the sales. So
they also can't be making money on those either.
Exactly.
So margins are going to be damaged.
Yep.
Do you have a link for that with it?
It was on Twitter.
Okay.
Yeah, it might be tough for me to find, but I'll try to find it some other time. If somebody knows in the comments section what we're talking about, there was I believe it was from a Chinese dealer. The gentleman was speaking in Chinese, and there was like the caption something about 200,000 BYD cars offloaded to used car dealer or something along those lines.
Luckily, I speak Mandarin fluently, so I understood it entirely in Chinese.
Great.
One other thing was we talked about briefly off was Lucid, because that's theoretically the competitor of Tesla that they produced, like 4 cars and they sold 3. So that's good.
What do you want to say? Just that? Yeah, I covered them on my video from yesterday about their earnings. They delivered 2,000 cars in Q4, roughly 1,900, at an average selling price of 133,000, and it cost them. I think the number was, I forget what it was, but they lost $185,000 per cars sold.
That's a bad business model.
Yeah, I would not recommend selling your vehicles at $185,000 loss. Not. Yeah, if you lose more than what you charge for it, not a good deal. Hans or Rodman, any ideas or thoughts before we move on to Q&A? Is there anything else you want to hit? Hans is like, nah. What about you, Rodman?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Extended Q&A. Finally. Go ahead, Hans.
I would say the one thing I'll add here is that the best part of when your producer wife brings up the Twitter comments is seeing her profile picture in the midst of all the ugly guys.
Nice. There you go. That's great. Okay, let's do it. Q&A. Let's bring up some questions. Who's the first one? Dun, dun, dun. Digital Blade California. He's got a little symbol because he's a community member. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, Digital. Longtime supporter. How does one invest in SpaceX, Bob? Tell him.
Yeah, what I will do is I will send Farzad the name of the company I saw, and he can put it out there. I forgot the name of the entity, but there's some financial entity that sells the units.
Got it. Okay. You can follow me at Farziness. I'll retweet it once that gets shared. Digital Blade, Canada or California? Thank you so much. Appreciate your question. Let's do the next one.
There's one other option too on that. You can the Baron Funds BPTRX, they hold a small portion of SpaceX in their publicly traded mutual fund. So for people who are not accredited investors, that's another option. It's a small percentage of the fund, but it does give you some exposure. And I would say that I've been very impressed. Ron Barron is a great fund manager. It's a mutual fund, so it's not an ETF. Fees are a little bit higher, but I like my money there better than most of the other Tesla adjacent funds.
Great call. Yeah, Barron he's a goat. Ice, thank you so much for your question. How do you get into the private discussion? Thank you so much for asking and giving me an option for a plug. You click on join right below this video, or you go into the description and click on join. You'll get access to our private Discord. You'll link it automatically through YouTube, which I figured out how to do that in a few days ago. So I'm very proud of myself for that. And then our private discussions will air right here on YouTube. You'll just do member only, and only members will be able to see it. So thank you very much for the question. That's how you do it. Go ahead, Bob. I guess you want to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you send me some Bitcoin, I will substitute myself out.
I just heard producer wife laughing from downstairs. That was funny. That's when you know it's a good joke. 1 out of 10. Not bad, Bob. Good job. I'm kidding. Let's do the next one. Next question. What is your prediction for the Boring Company's contribution to Master Plan Part 3? Just moving electric vehicles or something more direct? We actually briefly spoke about this earlier in the stream. Sort of where we're landing at is, I think it's mining, but Hans is more about moving people around and some other stuff as well. Is that, do we want to give any additional feedback there? That was basically it, right?
I was going to say, if Master Plan 3 also includes Mars, then Boring Company probably has a role on Mars also, I presume.
Any additional thoughts, Rodman, Hans?
I didn't watch Jordan's video, but does he talk about this?
He briefly touches on Boring Company. It was more around like the movement of people from place to place. It was more tied to that. And I would recommend everybody go watch that video for sure. The limiting factor. Yeah. Thank you for your question. Let's do the next one. Brad, question. Will Tesla deploy their motor in a home on a home wind turbine? Hans, tell us about the turbines. You love wind turbines. Go ahead.
I keep having this discussion. No.
Why not?
Let me send you a link here. And I mean, Elon has specifically said, if I can find the link quickly, I will, that overwhelmingly the future of sustainable energy on Earth is solar plus stationary battery storage. Wind is a great renewable resource. It's a great industrial renewable resource. The physics are, okay, so you can extract more electricity from wind the faster it goes, but it's not a linear relationship. It's not like the wind goes 2 times faster and you get twice as much energy. It's a cube function. So you get 8 times as much energy every time the wind speed goes up by 2. And so...
Sorry, y'all. We have a very funny private
yeah. Anyways. So and then the closer you get to the ground, the slower the wind moves because it's got all sorts of stuff that it has to go around. So the higher you get off the ground, the faster the wind speed and the more electricity that you can get. And so the vast majority of all electricity that is produced by a wind turbine is with a really, really tall wind turbine that's got huge blades, like those giant farms that you see in California, in Texas. Like that's where all the wind is produced. It doesn't matter how efficient you make, because the idea here is this is a small wind turbine, okay, that maybe you could put on the top of your house. You could have a turbine that was 100% efficient at extracting every single bit of electricity from the air that is flowing over your roof as possible, and it still will not be a meaningful contribution beyond solar. And then the other thing is it's just way more complicated. There's just so much more infrastructure that's involved. And so wind is a very important part of a sustainable energy grid when you have giant wind farms with giant wind turbines. Little tiny wind turbines are not part of that thing, and a Tesla motor. So unless Tesla wants to make motors for giant wind turbines, The question is, or the answer is no. Will they do that? I don't think so. They're just going to focus on battery storage and solar, just because that's what Elon says are the core components that we need to transition to a sustainable energy economy.
So I can't wait for Tesla to unveil a wind turbine on March 1st.
You can all come back here and watch Hans eat a shoe.
Please. Yeah, we need a bet. What if they do actually unveil a wind turbine? What will you do, Hans? We got to come on. It's got to be something. You got to chug a beer on stream or something. It's got to be something.
He's going to read a chapter.
I should blend up a shoe like Peter Beck from Rocket Lab. He said he would eat his hat if they did reusable rockets, and so then they decided to do reusable rockets, and so he had to blend up his hat, and then he took like a handful of the blended up nylon and ate it. So
you're gonna blend up a shoe?
I'll blend up a shoe and I'll eat a little piece of the blended up shoe.
There you go.
While reading a chapter of what's our problem.
I would suggest that I had this happen once. I participated in this, a Jello toss. Maybe Hans could be the receiver, and you throw Jello at the person. And what's fun is that Jello dye stays with you for like a month. So Hans would be green for a month.
By the way, thank you for derailing the conversation in the private chat, by the way. Thank you for that comment. Really, yeah, that's what we're dying laughing. Master troll over here. Thank you. All right, Brad, I hope that answered your question. I know Hans was going hard there. So now we know how to trigger Hans. We just have to say wind turbine, and then he'll go on a 10-minute rant. Thank you, Brad, for your question. Really appreciate you, brother. Let's do the next one. Billy, question. Do you think they will continue to reduce the price of Model 3 and Y down to 5 to 10% margins like the rest of the industry? This is actually a fascinating question. How do you guys think about this one? There's a lot in this question, actually, to think through.
It's all supply and demand.
Okay. As simple as that.
Okay. Yep. If there's enough supply and the demand is low enough, they'll reduce the price. If there's too much demand and not enough supply, they'll increase the price.
I think 20 is still a magic number, and it's magic for the stock too. And if the margins get too small, it'll affect the stock price. It just won't be as profitable, and it won't be treated like a growth company at that point in time. It'll be treated more, like I was going to say IBM or Intel. That's kind of a joke, but I think the margins have to stay higher.
Hans?
Yeah, I mean, I really don't think they don't set a design. They don't set, we want this % margin. They set the price based on how many cars they have available, and they need to get them off the lots. So if they have too many cars, they lower the price. If there's not enough cars, they increase the price. It's that simple.
Well, and to expand on that, so I think that in order for them to reduce margins down to that level, you're basically assuming that you have really compelling competition head-to-head with EVs that are just as good as Tesla, that those companies can sell profitably or subsidized by the government, which, if it's anywhere other than China, that means their cost of goods sold has to be competitive with Tesla, which I'm sorry, I just don't see that happening with anybody in the near term future. Potentially BYD can do that by taking a lot of government funding, but we'll see what goes there. But then the other thing I'll say is that there is opportunity to do that, even though I think it's unlikely, and still maintain company-wide operating margins that Zach wants to maintain by ramping up the energy storage deployments. So,
yeah. I think this one's a fascinating question because it depends in the market and what the supply and demand structure looks like, to Rodman's point. The way I think about it, the one thing I'm really starting to get my head wrapped around, at least in the United States, it does seem like, and I don't know if this applies to every market, I haven't done the diligence, but since 2018, the car market in the United States has shrunk. The new car sales, it's gone from almost 18 million to 17 million to 15 million to 14 million to 13 million. It's like basically around those numbers. It's been consistently lower. At the same time, you've had more people come to the United States. There's more people becoming driving age. There's more people that want a car. And then as this car market has shrunk, automakers have been shipping more and more SUVs. They've been shipping more and more trucks. Not just because this is what the market demands, but that's how they actually make money. It's easier to make money on an SUV and a truck versus a mass market a smaller car. So what's happened is that there's this giant void in the United States for affordable transportation that's private, that you can take, right? And that's why things like Uber and Lyft are so popular now, because it's too damn expensive to freaking buy a car nowadays, like one that actually is compelling and good. And one thing that the IRA has done in the United States, at least, is that it's significantly lowered the cost of operating an electric vehicle from where it was before that. So like the Model 3 as an example, starts at 42 after the $7,500 tax rebate, or through the lease break that they have on the Model 3, which is $350 a month. You essentially have a car that's as cheap or cheaper to operate than a freaking Toyota Camry over 8 years. And this Toyota Camry is $15,000 to $17,000 cheaper. And as the car market, and my theory is that in the next few years, the car market, I think it continues to shrink. Those new car sales is not going to rebound back to 17, because now that you have the EV tax credit in place, you have this mechanism that is de-incentivizing people from buying an expensive gas car. The average new price of a car today is $50,000. The average car payment today is $770. So there's this insane void of a compelling, affordable car. And with the Model 3, I think Tesla's there. With the Model Y, from a value perspective, they're there, but it's not affordable enough. But once that compact car comes, oh boy. And the demand there is going to be completely insane, I believe. So think about that. A shrinking car market, you have one automaker that actually has the scale to sell a compelling, affordable electric vehicles, and then put that within the context of supply and demand and what that does to the equation. And if you believe that the demand's going to be insane, then you're going to have margins that are going to be significantly above what most people expect. I don't know what the number is, but that's, yeah.
I think that the part that's omitted is, I think, Tesla's specialty and their brilliance is going to be the cost reduction. So even though the cost of the cars go down, I think the cost to Tesla is going to go down more. And that's where they will retain the margins. We think just because the car is going to be, 20,000 as opposed to 30, they're not going to make the same amount. But they might end up making a bigger percentage in the long run, depending on how their manufacturing processes improve over time.
Great point.
And then just to take this back to the question, like, how is demand right now? And we can look at that information through mattjung.net. His Tesla inventory tracking
Go ahead and pull up
shows
that.
Did he pay you to say that?
Yeah, he totally did. No, I have never met Matt, but yeah, we can just see that. If you scroll down to the next section, that has I think it broken out by the 4 models. And you can see basically the big spike in blue is the Model Y, and that's around when Tesla implemented the price changes, and you can see the effect that it had. And the red is the Model 3. Yep. So you can see that the Model 3 has dipped a little bit, but they took care of the Model Y problems. So I just don't see, and like in a non-empirical way, just keeping my eyes out around here, I've never seen so many new cars being sold, like especially the Y.
New Teslas, you mean?
Yeah, new cars. Yeah, new Teslas being sold.
Same.
Like a lot of Ys, a lot of Model S's, a few X's here and there, and definitely some 3s. But like, there's a lot of like new car tags I've seen, maybe like at least twice as many as I normally see.
That's a great point.
I mean, that's not a very scientific way, but
I'm curious. Before we go to you, Bob, in the comments section, can you let us know if you're seeing what Robin's seeing? Because I'm seeing the same exact thing. Like producer wife and I are constantly, when we drive, we're like, where the hell are all these Teslas coming from? It's like we're getting overrun with Teslas out here in Austin. Let us know if you're seeing the same thing where you guys are at. Bob, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say because Rodman and I live not that far from each other, maybe 30 miles or so. And I see them now as plentiful as I used to see the Camrys. That's kind of how I'm starting to see them. They're everywhere. And because they're kind of white and black, you can kind of identify, a lot of them are white and black. You can kind of identify them. They're really identify, especially, once you see a few. But I think there is definitely an increase. And I think the numbers in California support that. I mean, the actual numbers.
Yeah. Great point. All right. Let's do a few more. Let's get all the way up to 1:30 or an hour 30, and then we'll go to our private stream. Next question. And Vi, thank you. Always on the channel. Really appreciate you. How does cost of energy approach zero, including government incentives like Elon and Chamath have suggested? Chamath, in case you guys are not familiar, Chamath Palihapitiya. I think I pronounced his last name correctly. I hope. Sorry, Chamath, if you watch this. I know you're a big fan of my channel, I'm sure. All In Podcast. Make sure you go check it out. It's on YouTube. Phenomenal podcast. Any thoughts about this? When and how? We're all experts. We should know this question.
I think there's just a distinction to make. Chamath didn't say, and I'm not sure what Elon has said on this. Chamath didn't say that the cost of energy will go to zero. He said the marginal cost of energy will go to zero, and there is a big difference. So basically what he's saying is there's a minimum amount of investment that we have to put in to maintain our power infrastructure, and this is one of Tony Seba's points. Basically, if you build out the minimum fully renewable electric grid that you need with solar, wind, and batteries, that it only takes like 20 or 30% extra investment above that to get 2 or 3 times the total amount of power out. And so that's, I think, from my understanding, what Chamath is talking about, is that going ahead and making those larger investments that allow us to have way more overall power for the same amount that we basically have to spend on our current power grid.
I think it also might relate to individuals being able to kind of do their own power. They can generate their own power supply. They can also sell it back basically into the system. And in effect, it becomes, somewhat, it lowers the cost of power, if nothing else.
Yeah. Robin, any thoughts?
Well, there's also the talk about nuclear. Is it fusion, right? Fission. Fission is what we have. Fusion is where we put
the new one.
Yeah. But I everything I've seen from fusion is it's still very, like, it's at a lab bench type thing. So I don't have any clue if that's what we're getting at here. But it seems like that's far away, a little bit further than I was thinking maybe a month ago.
Yeah.
But that back to the future, where you have a flux capacitor and you throw the trash in, that's what we're shooting for, right?
I think as long as we get it to a point where the, sort of to Han's point, if we get it so that we have a step change in how many people can access things that would create services or products that are helpful for humanity, where energy is used, if that can increase in some way, that is truly what's going to benefit. It's less about like the end result of what that cost is going to be. It's like how many more people, at what rate can we introduce more and more people into the global economy to bring more and more benefits, right? So yeah, we just got a high connected. That's interesting. All right, let's do one more question, and then we'll move over to our private chat. Let's do one more. And Bossman8 gets the last question. How much do you guys think an unopened Tesla Tequila would go for? What a fantastic way to end the stream. Should we go on eBay and check it out?
I have an opinion. My opinion is it would cost $69.69.
I highly doubt that, bro. It's $250. Come on now. Isn't it a limited supply?
Yeah, it's gone. I don't think they made it anymore.
Tequila. I'm actually looking it up on YouTube to see how much it's going to cost. So $270 or best offer. is what it's running for right now.
That's my offer.
Bob's got the best deal, so if you want to buy it from Bob, he'll give it to you on the cheap. All right, everybody. We're moving over to our private stream. If you're a community member, if you've joined right below this video, it will come up automatically on your YouTube feed. So look out for that. If you haven't, do consider becoming a part of this community by clicking on join right below this video. Starts at $3 a month. Basically, you get the same benefits across every single tier. It's just up to you how much you decide to support by, how much you want to support the channel with. And then we're going to move over to a different stream. We'll go live and we'll continue our discussion. And we're going to kick it off with that Rodman Hans discussion around California politics. I'm very fascinated to see where this goes. So I'm very, very interested. Just so you know, in my community, the thing that I'm super proud about is that we're cultivating this sort of community where any and all ideas are welcome, and we try our absolute best to be as civil as humanly possible in discussing those ideas. There's no judgment. We're just here trying to throw ideas around on really how to make the future better. And ultimately, that's my goal, is how to harvest a community where we're able to do that. And then half of the earnings from these community forums go into my community bucket, where the community is going to decide what to do with those funds. Whatever they decide is what we'll do. And every single week, the number goes up. I actually got to run the numbers from last week, and I got to add it. So I'll do that right after we get off here. So thank you all so much for supporting the channel. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Hans. Thank you, Rodman. Thank you, chat. Always civil and amazing in there. Thank you, mods, for always keeping it super awesome and all the help. And last but not least, of course, as always, producer wife. Thank you so much. Great job as always. Love you, baby. All right. We'll see you on the private stream. Again, if you want to join us there, click join right below this video. Take it easy, everybody. See you in a bit.
Thank you, everyone.